What up, everybody? It is Archie Hodges here, president of the Black Achievement Fund, and I'm really, really excited to see you guys today. Today, we're going to be doing a little education today. As you guys know out there, or if you don't know, if you're just tuning in today to learn more about the Black Achievement Fund, I'm going to give you my quick 5 minute or so elevator spiel on the Black Achievement Fund, and then we're going to go into some education, all right? The Black Achievement Fund, for those of you who are tuning in to learn a little bit more.
I'm going to give you my.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, we have some housekeeping to do. Let me get that out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and make some of our ambassadors co-hosts so that you guys can let people in and mute people as they come in. I just got really, really excited and just jumped right in, didn't do any housekeeping business at all. All right, so I have quite a few co-hosts. Co-hosts, if you can let people in and keep people muted until it is time for us to have a discussion. Okay. Sorry, I am a little bit late, everybody. For those of you who were on at 2 o'clock, I'm just now just trying to key up some things. All right. Okay. Mm, Okay. 1 second, guys.
I want to sound the alarm.
Okay. For those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Archie Hodges. I'm the president and co-founder of the Black Achievement Fund. We are here in our Kemet Club today in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we are going to have a special day on education. The Black Achievement Fund, we are a national, I'll say international, Black Economic and Community Development Corporation with the simple mission of Black economic independence. Our ultimate goal is self-determination, not some, lofty, just very simple, self-determination. We want the ability to own land, to control the community that we own this land in, to be in control of the politics, economics, and everything social that we do here in the country. We have a very, very easy, simple solution to achieve this very, 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 very grandiose mission that we have of Black economic independence for self-determination. What is that? How do we expect to achieve something so grand in our lifetime here in America? 10 million Black people and our allies, plus $9 a month, equals $90 million every single month, over $1 billion a year to do just what we just said. And that is finance our own development, build our own cities in America. When I sit here before you in 2024 and I talk about building a city, I know so many of you are looking at me and maybe some of you are ready to turn me off. Here we go again. Black people talking about building a city. Black people talking about Black Wall Street. Black people talk. Can we do this? Can we do this in 2024? Do we have the resources, the capabilities, the talent? Do we have the will as a community, as a people, to be self-determining? We here at the Black Achievement Fund say yes on all accounts. We are in the full throw of this movement of Black economic independence, Black self-determination. establishing our own communities, establishing our own cities, our own municipalities. Okay, we right now currently have a little over 3,200 members worldwide. We have members in all 50 states. We also have over 4 dozen members internationally from the continent in Zambia and South Africa and Gambia. And we also have members in Paris and Canada and Germany, so on and so forth, who have identified the Black Achievement Fund solution as something that is simple and that they believe they can accomplish, or we can accomplish, not just here in America, but this is something that we want to spread all over the world. This is an ideology that can be readily adopted by anyone, any people, anywhere in the world, without permission from anyone. This is how we, as the people, can unite and begin to establish the institutions, establish a culture that we ourselves control, building a world that we are in charge of. All right. So that is our grand mission here at the Black Achievement Fund. And today we're going to be talking about Black people who've done this already in the past, over 100 years ago. All right. Many of you may have already seen our class on Mound Bayou through Education for Life Academy. I believe I've taught it about 2 or 3 times before, but it's something that I go back to time and time and time again, because as a historian, I study history not to just be inspired. I study history to learn. I study history to learn from the wisdom of our ancestors from as far back as 100 years to 200 years to 6,000 years. But that wisdom is sitting there for us to explore. That wisdom is sitting there for us to build upon. So that's what we're doing here at the Black Achievement Fund, okay? We're analyzing who we are as a people. We're analyzing all of the strategies that were utilized in the past for our liberation here in America. We're analyzing all of the leaders and the leadership strategies that they employed. So today we're going to be talking about Mound Bayou. Okay, Mound Bayou is a very, very, very special community for a number of reasons, and it has a very, very, very complex history, going all the way back, of course, to African enslavement. So I'm going to share a couple small videos on Mound Bayou and the history of Mound Bayou, and then we're going to go into an article by Booker T. Washington on Mound Bayou. I know all of you guys know who Booker T. Washington was. If you don't, he's one of our great ancestors who doesn't get enough acclaim, who doesn't get enough shine. Booker T. Washington visited Mound Bayou, and he was so inspired by Mound Bayou that he adopted the principles and strategy of Mound Bayou as his own, as he catapulted to leadership in the United States of America. All right, so we're going to start first with our first video, and then we're also going to leave time for question and answers as well.
Here a bit. We need to have an urgent conversation about your future and about the future that is waiting for your children. A great
President of the Confederate States. Welcome to Mississippi. In 1837, Benjamin Montgomery, a slave, was purchased in Natchez, Mississippi by Joseph Emory Davis, the older brother of Jefferson Davis. Although Jefferson Davis will later on become President of the Confederate States, It's been said that both Jefferson and Joseph showed kindness to their slaves. They always referred to their slaves as servants and not slaves. So when Benjamin escaped and was captured and brought back to Davis' Ben, Joseph inquired as to why Ben was so dissatisfied that he would take such a change and maybe even be killed. The two men came to an understanding. The Joseph Davis Hurricane Plantation and Jeff's Briarfield Plantation were the most liberal plantations in the South. The slaves were allowed to form their own governments and administer their own discipline. Their living conditions were said to be better than most poor whites, and they even had dental care. Joseph allowed Benjamin Montgomery to start his own dry goods store on the plantation. Joseph furnished the money to get started with, and the agreement was that Ben would keep his profits as long as he paid Joseph the wages for his lost time as a slave. Now Ben did so well that he could soon buy his wife's time so that she could stay home and raise their children. Ben was taught to read and write, plus how to keep books, and enjoyed the full use of the Davises' extended library. Ben was soon placed over the entire purchasing and shipping operation of both Hurricane and Briarfield plantations, a position usually reserved for white men only. Now, on May the 21st, 1847, Isaiah Montgomery was born. He was afforded the same privileges as his dad Benjamin, even the use of the Davis Library. During the Civil War, when the Northern armies began invading Mississippi, the Davis' family left the plantations in Benjamin's hands. Ben continued the operation of both plantations until Confederate and Union soldiers burned the crops and ransacked the homes, forcing the Montgomerys to leave Davis Ben and travel north. After the war, pardons were given to Joseph Davis and other Davis Ben planters, and their lands restored to them. The Montgomerys returned to Davis Ben to run Hurricane and Briarfield plantations, not for the Davises, but under a lease agreement from Joseph Davis. Later, Joseph sold both plantations to Benjamin Montgomery. This was the first time that a former slave actually bought the plantation that he was a slave on from his former owner. Joseph Davis wanted to keep the families of his 300 plus slaves together and knew that Ben would try to do that. The Montgomerys reestablished their former general store. Young Isaiah was soon married and placed in charge of bookkeeping and correspondence. He moved into the Hurricane Plantation property once owned by Joseph Davis, and his dad Benjamin Montgomery moved into the home of Jefferson Davis at Briarfield. It's been said that Joseph had given his former best slave a generous deal. The Montgomerys purchased another plantation, making them the third largest cotton producers in Mississippi. They not only become one of the largest landowners, owning over 5,000 acres and having several hundred field hands, they won awards for producing the best quality cotton. In 1878, Benjamin Montgomery dies. And along that same time, cotton prices began to fall, leaving cotton planters in financial distress. The Montgomerys were no exception, and soon were unable to meet their obligations. After losing their land, Isaiah moved to Vicksburg and tried opening another store. 7 years later, in 1885, still not willing to give up on his dad's idea of an all-black colony, Isaiah Montgomery presented his cousin, Benjamin T. Green, with a radical idea. They would look for land to develop and invite only black industrious individuals to participate. This time, each individual would own their own farmland. They located the right land, middle ways between Vicksburg and Memphis. It was land with trees and swamps, and first had to be cleared, and most white people wanted no part of it because of the dreaded swamp fever. Now, this is the first black settlers clearing land for what will become the town of Mound Bayou. In July of 1887, the all-black town of Mound Bayou was established. What makes this town so special is the fact that it was established by ex-slaves of Joseph Davis, brother of Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederacy. Many residents of Mound Bayou can trace their ancestry back to the two founders, Isaiah T. Montgomery and Benjamin T. Green, and others. Benjamin Green died in 1896, and Isaiah Montgomery had become the town's first mayor. Mayor Montgomery was instrumental in the town's development. This was his and his wife's, Martha's, home. Isaiah passed away in 1924. His dream of an all-black town and community still exists today. Mound Bayou had one of the first all-black banks in Mississippi. Now, this is a building where banker Charles Banks began making loans to black farmers. As the Montgomerys were at Davis Bend, Mound Bayou farmers produced some of the top-grade cotton in the state. They had the only railroad depot in the South where the black waiting room was larger than the white. When President Theodore Roosevelt stopped here on a train trip through the South, he called Mound Bayou the jewel of the Delta. While merchants from surrounding communities showed respect to black farmers and residents that were from Mound Bayou, it was said to be a place where its residents didn't run from a sheriff, but run for sheriff. It was a town with all-black government when that was almost unheard of. Mound Bayou's mayor, Darrell Johnson, stated that his town played a major role in the 1960s civil rights movement. Civil rights workers and leaders would come to stay in Mound Bayou at night in order to feel safe. The hearts and support of Mound Bayou residents went out to civil rights workers who were trying to achieve the rights and freedoms that Mound Bayou citizens had enjoyed for decades.
All right. Now, y'all have to excuse the video. That was done by a white Southerner. We're going to be watching a short video done by an African American person, but I wanted you to see the contrast when someone else is telling your history versus when you tell your history. But I also wanted to give that person a little bit of shine because I thought they did a pretty good job. And they took their time to highlight a piece of Black history that we in our own community don't know much about. And one of the startling things about Mound Bayou and the Isaiah Montgomery and Benjamin Montgomery, his father, was that they were enslaved on this very plantation that they end up owning. The Joseph Davis, who was 20 years older than Jefferson Davis, and if you guys know your history, Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy, And his older brother, Joseph, was almost like a father figure to him. And Joseph was known to be one of the most liberal slave owners all throughout the South. You guys heard how he never whipped any slave on his plantation. He allowed them to met out their own punishments. He allowed Benjamin, Isaiah's father, to run and operate his own store and essentially pay rent and keep all of his profits. So it was a very, very, very unusual situation for Mound Bayou to emerge. When we talk about the town being created or established by former enslaved Africans, you're talking about enslaved Africans that were privileged the entire time. You're talking about enslaved Africans that could read in a time when white people, the masses of white people, couldn't read. And not only could they read, they could understand law. You know, they understood contracts, all of those types of things. So it was, um, I wouldn't say easy, but it gave Isaiah a lot of confidence and a lot of skills to be able to go out and establish a municipality, because they didn't just go out and buy a bunch of land. They went out and they established a municipality, which is their very own township, which allowed them to govern themselves. And the white guy, he said something very powerful in this documentary. He said that Mound Bayou became known as a town where black men didn't run from the sheriff, they ran for sheriff. I mean, look how profound that is. And often when we talk about something all black, we tend to think that it has to look hood, it has to look ghetto, it can't be polished, it can't be upscale, it can't be equal to that of something that white people do. And when we investigate our history, we find that that's not true. We find that time and time again, African American settlements, African American towns, African American municipalities often were better than their white counterparts in a number of areas. But the number one thing that stands out was that these are African people who were self-determining. They were in control of the politics, the education, the economy, and the social fabric of their community. They established all of the laws. They voted for or appointed all of the elected officials, including the sheriff, the constable, so on and so forth. So this was African people utilizing the laws of the United States of America to establish their very own city where they were boss, where they were in control. And this was just such a powerful thing. So much so that prominent white people had to stand and take note. Hold on, these people were just enslaved 10 years ago. And now they're running a whole town, but they already had experience running a whole plantation, which is a mega corporation in and of itself. They already had experience dealing with employees. Booker T. Washington looked at this and he said, man, we plied all of the trades during enslavement. We cleared the land. We raised the crops. We harvested the crops. We took care of the animals. We fed the animals. We butchered the animals for food. We made the beds. We were the blacksmiths. We built the houses. We were all the contractors. We did everything for someone else. Now we have the opportunity to do for ourselves. Now we have the opportunity to build our own city here. Why would we do anything other than that? Do you think any of our ancestors who were just released from being enslaved were seeking to integrate into white society? Is that what you're thinking? Are you thinking that the white people who had just been whipped and lost the privilege of having enslaved African people, do you think they were trying to now be civil and share everything with the people who formerly had no rights under them? That was absurd. What did the white South want after enslavement with the African population? What did they want? They wanted complete separation. They wanted African Americans to establish their own communities, govern themselves, take care of themselves, but they didn't want them intertwined in white affairs, white culture, running white government, none of that. That was the last thing. And it was force-fed to them. You lost the Civil War. You no longer get to dictate the terms anymore. So what did the North do? The North made Africans equal to their former slave masters overnight. Equal to you. You're citizens, you're equal. You have the right to become not just a business person, you can become a congressman. You can become a senator. And yes, this is the period during Reconstruction. Right after the Civil War, the 10 years that followed, the federal government had the military stationed all throughout the South to protect African people from white retribution after the Civil War. For 10 years, the military. And this is an area of history that few people know about. They sure ain't teaching this. This is the period when you had your very first black, like I said, senators and congressmen and police constables and sheriffs. So here overnight, you got white people and black people in Congress writing laws that white people have to follow. You have black sheriffs with guns that white men had to obey. In order for us to understand where we are in history, in order for us to understand the ascendancy of Donald Trump, we have to know history. And not history that somebody else has given us. We have to be able to think critically. We have to be able to have our own historians provide context for us that is African-centered. Because only we can do that. Here you have a situation where you see the African people who are recently freed. Number one, they don't want to integrate with these people. They don't want to be nowhere near these people. They just endured the most harsh treatment from these people. Why am I immediately trying to go and be a part of their society? I'm a Virgo. I'm ruled by logic. It's just straight logic, 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 logic. And where we are today is illogical, people. It is absolutely illogical. And the beauty about establishing our own town, our own municipality, you heard it. We don't have to worry about white cops anymore. That's completely eliminated. Ain't no white cops, and can't no white cop come in here and do nothing. You don't have jurisdiction. We appoint the mayor. You are our mayor. You work for us. You don't work for nobody else. It's an all-black town. So your leadership isn't compromised in any degree. This is where we need to be, people. This is where we're trying to take us back with the Black Achievement Fund. Now I'm going to show another quick video by a black woman.
Can't go? Do this to clear out stuck poop fast. On June 17th in 2019,
Welcome to Little Known Black History Facts. Please like, share, comment, and
Can you guys see
subscribe
my
to the channel.
screen?
Yes.
On the video?
No, no.
No.
Okay, hold on.
Channel.
Flag bearer.
Celebrating Mound Bayou, Mississippi, the oldest all-black town in the United States. Mound Bayou, located in the Mississippi Delta, was founded in 1887. Two former slaves, Isaiah T. Montgomery, a prominent businessman, and Benjamin Green, had a dream even before the Civil War to establish the largest United States African-American town, and that is how Mound Bayou came to be. Their vision was to create a self-reliant, autonomous black community. From 1890 to 1915, Mound Bayou was a land of promise for African Americans. Encapsulated in this promise was self-help, race pride, economic opportunity, and social justice in a self-segregated community designed for blacks to have minimum contact with whites until integration changed the social dynamics. Known as the Jewel of the Delta, Mound Bayou was established in 1887 and incorporated in 1898. The town is the oldest United States all-black municipality founded by ex-slaves. The two former slaves purchased the 840-acre land for $7 per acre. The men paid $420 down with the balance due in 5 annual payments. The area was selected because of the Louisville, New Orleans, and Texas Line Railroad that ran right through the center of the town. It didn't take long for Mound Bayou to flourish. It became the largest African American community in the nation. The town included its own post office, 6 churches, a train depot, 3 schools, 40 businesses, 3 cotton gins, a zoo, a library, a bank, and a hospital. There was also a cottonseed oil mill where numerous blacks were employed. A town of this magnitude was unheard of at the time, and the economic development it enjoyed drew the attention of many, including Booker T. Washington. Washington spoke at the opening of the Mound Bayou Cotton Oil Mill on November 15, 1912. It was the largest cotton oil mill in the state, which Washington stated symbolized the effort of this all-black town to establish the technological basis for economic self-sufficiency. The New York Times estimated in 1910 that 90% of Mound Bayou's 8,000 residents owned their own homes and had comfortably sound bank accounts. President Theodore Roosevelt nicknamed Mound Bayou the Jewel of the Delta because it illustrated the success that an all-black town could attain. By 1900, 2/3 of independent farmers in the Delta were black. But as Jim Crow laws took effect, black people in Mound Bayou started to lose their land. Its noticeable decline occurred during the Great Migration period, in which cotton prices fell, Booker T. Washington had passed away, and the black path towards freedom was redirected from independent towns toward the major cities of the United States. During the early 1940s, a fire broke out, destroying most of the business district of Mound Bayou. However, it was not the end of the town. In 1942, Taborian Hospital was opened and provided low-cost medical care for thousands of African Americans in the Mississippi Delta. The Taborian is recognized as the first health maintenance organization in America, as subscriptions from black Delta farmers underwrote the organization. At the turn of the century, Mound Bayou had more millionaires in its population than any Delta town. Mound Bayou still exists today as a predominantly black town in Mississippi with 98.6% total black population. As with many small southern towns, Mound Bayou has seen a steady decline in its population. However, efforts are being made to restore the town to its historic place that it once was. Mound Bayou was once an oasis in turbulent times. While the rest of Mississippi was violently segregated, inside the city there were no racial codes. The city has a proud history. Mound Bayou's history is a crowning achievement in the struggle for self-determination and economic empowerment.
All right. So yet more information on Mound Bayou, and this time this was from an African American female scholar. And once again, you're seeing the success of African Americans working together to establish their own government, working together to become prosperous together, together. And they did it, a lot of it, I think, it was natural for many of them because they were related. Isaiah T. Montgomery and Benjamin, I forgot Benjamin's last name. They were first cousins. Many of the people who flocked to Mound Bayou were people who were on the former plantations that Benjamin and Isaiah had been on. So they saw their leadership firsthand and they believed in them. What isn't noticed is that people died. It wasn't just all glamour, all right? A bayou is just a fancy name for a swamp. Just want to let you know. And when the first historian talked about the swamp fever, people were dying in masses, and they didn't really know what was the cause from people being in swamps and things like that. They just generally called it swamp fever. So you had a lot of people who thought that the pioneers of Mound Bayou were crazy, who thought that these people thinking that they're going to go and build a city on a swamp, that you're just fishing for trouble. And yes, there were people that died in trying to tame this swamp into land usable for our own people. But that also let you know the climate that our people were in. After enslavement, we enjoyed 10 years of protected freedom with the federal troops stationed all throughout the South, the freedmen's bureaus. So former slaves or freedmen had all of these posts all throughout the South that they could go and find redress if they had any issues with any white people. And that was critical because right after enslavement was over, this is when you got the Ku Klux Klan. There was no Ku Klux Klan during enslavement. For what? They didn't need it. So the Ku Klux Klan was established to intimidate free blacks, to intimidate freedmen, to simply acquiescing right back into another form of enslavement. This is what the prison system came into being. You didn't have no robust prison system during enslavement. We were slaves. So this is the genesis of white supremacy. This is the genesis of modern white supremacy, I should say. This is the genesis of the Ku Klux Klan and organized, modern white hatred against African people. You had many people after the Civil War, many white Southerners, who you think they just accepted defeat? That's what you think? That everybody just accepted defeat and just moved on about their business? We're not going to think about that no more. No. They organized and organized at every level of society to regain 100% of power and control over their society back from African people. That was unity. That was white unity. We have to be able to amass the same level of sustained unity in order to achieve our mission as others have done to achieve missions against us. So here you see black people after 1876, you no longer have Africans in all of these powerful positions. You have a retreat. The federal government decides to remove the federal troops from the South and essentially allow the Southerners to regain control over the politics of the South. Okay? Following Reconstruction became the worst time in history for African American people. So many African historians, consider this period, the period immediately following the collapse of Reconstruction with the Tilden Hayes Compromise of 1876. You see so much new violence directed at Black people. You see lynching at an all-time high because the federal troops, the people who were there safeguarding the rights of the freedmen, of the freed African Americans, they were gone. And the North had signaled to the South that we're going to retreat. We're going to allow you to take back control of your society, however you want to do it. But we're going to remove the troops. And when they did that, retribution was rampant against African people. Okay? White men were able to unleash hell on African people. And they made African Americans pay for all of their ancestors that were murdered during the Civil War, for the fact that they lost control of their society. They went to take all of that out on Black people in the South. So this is the climate that Isaiah T. Montgomery is operating in. This is the climate in which they're building Mound Bayou. They're building Mound Bayou in a sea of hatred. They're building Mound Bayou as a refuge. They're building Mound Bayou as a way to preserve not just themselves, but to preserve African culture, African way of life, to reconstitute Black people, Black families under a secure structure, a secure government that is squarely looking after their interests. This is what the leadership of Isaiah Montgomery and company did in the establishment of Mound Bayou. Okay? This is critical to understand the context in which this happened. It's critical to understand history because you don't understand these white people today. And you don't understand the seriousness of their cause and what that means for us. Because essentially, they are here to reassert and to establish permanent control over everybody in America, including you. Just because you're free now don't mean that you will remain free. Freedom has to be won and sustained and maintained every generation. Every generation. White racists, white supremacists have not retreated from their mission since the end of the Civil War. They haven't stopped. They're training their children, and their children are training their children. And this is how you scratch your head and say, well, how did we get a Black president? And then the very next president is one of the most racist presidents that we've seen in 100 years. Barack Obama was a wake-up call to the white community, and it galvanized them. All of those that were in the center, all of those who had become liberal, now begun to understand that, hey, those white racists were saying something. That there is a possibility, a real possibility, that we can be eclipsed as the leaders of this country. And this country and white people accept the leadership of Black people at the highest levels of this government. That's a problem. Obama's presidency was significant in so many other ways than what I've heard our community talk about. We talk about what he meant for us. What did he mean to other people? What he meant to the white elite was this. We have just made white Americans comfortable with having a black man be the leader of the free world. We've taken away any assumptions about what that looks like or could look like. So what does that mean to have conditioned a whole generation of white people to not just respect African male leadership at the highest level, but to admire, adore this person? And you wonder why a person like a racist like Donald Trump wasn't seething. That was never supposed to happen. And not only did it happened twice. Not only did it happen twice, but there was no scandals during this man's entire presidency. None. Now, we as the black community, we can criticize his response to global politics against African people. But in terms of the traditional scandals and all of those things that impugn the reputations of none of that. That was a threat that was tacitly understood by even the most liberal white. And that is how you got the reversal. That is how you get the most liberal extreme that you can go in, and that with a black man president, to the very opposite end of the spectrum, the most racist we can find. Where does the context come from? Do we understand it? And if we don't understand it, how can we defeat it? How can you defeat a disease you don't know the source of it? How can you prescribe a cure? You don't know the underlying causes. We are ill prepared to deal with this level of white supremacist unification because we have placed our liberation in the hands of other people. We have retreated from our reliance on ourselves. We've retreated on our own independence. And now we're being attacked and we don't know how to respond. You got so many black people just running to the person they think gonna win now. We have to sit back as intelligent people, and we have to be able to analyze history as we're doing it today. We have to be able to understand the context to the historical position that we find ourselves in, and we have to be able to respond and react in accordance.
Sure.
While I'm monitoring and watching presidential politics, I'm more concerned on building Lil Kemet. I'm spending more time in developing a self-sustaining, vibrant black community than I am investing in integration politics. If the Black Achievement Fund was an integrationist organization, we wouldn't have our own land. We wouldn't have our own Kemet Club, branded under our own name, funded by ourselves. We'd be out here asking every foundation we can to give us some money. That's dependency. That's dependency. Why would we in 2024 accept a dependent position in America? Why would we accept conditional citizenship, the lure of a fair handshake, when we should know better? We should know better. We're going to take this a little further, and we're going to read an article, not the whole article. We're just going to read some excerpts from an article written by Booker T. Washington about Mound Bayou. And just to give you a little bit more context, Mound Bayou is established in 1887. In 1876, Black Reconstruction ends. So this is 10 years after the federal troops have been removed from the South. All right. Booker T. Washington visits Mound Bayou. He visits Isaiah T. Montgomery. He hears the philosophy behind the establishment of Mound Bayou. He hears the philosophy of Black self-reliance. He hears the dream of establishing an all-Black city that was just as or more prosperous than any white community. He saw that. He saw and understood that these were men of extreme capabilities. These were men who were pioneers as enslaved Africans, who were reading and running affairs on the largest plantations. These were people who knew how to grow the best cotton in the world. So he himself went to learn from these people. And his whole political ideology was based on what he saw at Mound Bayou. Black self-reliance, Black people building all of the buildings, Black people running the stores, Black people building their own churches, having their own theaters, having their own library. Okay, this is Davis Bend. This is one of the plantations that Isaiah and his father Benjamin were a part of. All right, and they lived in this. They lived in this house for over a decade. And the big house, can you imagine that? He lived in one plantation and his son lived in the other. This is one of the churches. All brick buildings. This is the railroad station back then. This is the home of Isaiah T. Montgomery, founder of Mound Bayou. And it's still there. It looks just like this. This is a relatively recent picture. And the town is trying to raise funds to renovate the home, renovate the first bank there, and some other things with, a little success. But this is what we're supposed to be doing as a community, preserving our own history. It shouldn't be left to other people. But if we're not taught this in school, how do the future Black NBA and NBA players, how do they have any type of grounding in their culture, in their community, so that when they become wealthy through integrated means, that they'll come back and give to their community if they don't know anything about it? This was a library. Carnegie came through town, saw what they was doing, and spent money building the library. The founders of Mound Bayou. Look at the man sitting in the middle. He looked like he could be a white man. And that is how sensitive race is in America. Even up to this day, we go by a one drop rule. One drop of black blood, you black. This is the cotton mill. Look at this. This is the work of black people building it, every piece of it. All right, that's our slideshow. Now we're going to go into the article. Oh, it's already there. Okay. And again, we're not going to read the entire article, but we're going to read about the establishment of the town, and then we're going to have a brief discussion. Okay, I'm going to ask some ambassadors that are on.
Okay, good up.
Can you guys mute people, please? All right. A town owned by Negroes, Mound Bayou, Mississippi, an example of thrift and self-government, by Booker T. Washington. Bolivar County is noted among the counties of Mississippi for two reasons. It contains the richest soil in the famous Yazoo Delta, and it possesses the only regularly constituted Negro town in the southern states. This town, called Mound Bayou, gets its name from a large mound, a relic of the prehistoric inhabitants of the country, which marks the junction of two of the numerous bayous that make so important a part of the natural drainage system of this low and level land. Swamp. Situated in the heart of the wide alluvial plain between the Mississippi and the Yazoo rivers, Mound Bayou is a center of a Negro population more dense than can be found anywhere else outside of Africa. The Negroes outnumber the whites 7-1 throughout the Delta. There are whole sections of these rich bottomlands where no white man lives. Mound Bayou and the territory for several miles around it on every side is one such section, a Negro colony occupying 30,000 acres, all of which is owned by Negroes, most of them small farmers who till 40 and 80-acre tracts. The town itself has, at present, a population of about 500. Of these, 83 are registered voters. Mound Bayou is a self-governing community. That is one of the interesting things about it. It has had, since it was incorporated in 1898, a mayor, 3 aldermen, a constable, and a town marshal, all of them Negroes. This was necessarily so because no white man has ever lived in this community since it was established, except the man who introduced the telephone system, and he remained only long enough to teach some of the townspeople how to manage the exchange. The colony, of which Mound Bayou is, so to speak, the capital, grew out of a correspondence and an interview between Major George W. McGinnis, land commissioner of what was known at the time as the Louisville, New Orleans, and Texas Railway, and Isaiah T. Montgomery, the man who founded the colony. The railroad, now known as the Yazoo and Mississippi Valley, wanted to settle the vacant lands along its right-of-way. It was Montgomery's idea to establish on these wild lands a Negro colony, and his plan was heartily seconded by the officers of the railroad. In the spring of 1887, accompanied by a civil engineer, he made a personal inspection of these lands and finally located the site for the present town on the line of the railroad 104 miles south of Memphis and 116 miles north of Vicksburg. 20 years ago, this whole region was wild and inaccessible. The country was covered with a heavy hardwood forest, which united with the dense undergrowth of briars and cane to make a dense jungle, through which it was only possible to thread one's way by the use of a magnetic needle, cutting the path as one proceeded. Through this semi-tropical jungle, the railroad had blazed a wide furrow for a distance of 200 miles from Memphis to Vicksburg, along which were scattered a few straggling villages, with here and there a larger town. All right, anyone wants to volunteer? One morning in the fall.
Okay, I got it. I got it. One morning in the fall of 1887, a northbound train stopped in the midst of this wilderness. A party of Negroes stepped off, and the train went its way. The leader of the group, a small, slender man with strongly marked features and a deliberate and thoughtful manner, held in his hand a plot, which he looked at from time to time. This was Isaiah T. Montgomery, and the men with him were the first contingent of prospective settlers. It was not easy, as I have often heard Mr. Montgomery say, to find settlers in that early day. The task of taming this wild country seemed hopeless to men with so few resources and so little experience. On this particular morning, Mr. Montgomery thought it is best to make a little speech before proceeding with the work that had brought them thither. You see, he said, waving his hand in the direction of the forest, this is a pretty wild place. He paused, and the men looked hesitatingly in the direction he had indicated, but said nothing. But this whole country, he continued, was like this once. You have seen it change. You and your fathers have, for the most part, performed the work that has made it what it is. You and your fathers did this for someone else. Can't you do as much now for yourselves? The men picked up their axes and attacked the wilderness. The idea of the thing got hold of the minds of some of them, so they went back home and prepared to return and take up the work of pioneers. It was not until February 1888, however, that the first permanent settlers moved in. A month later, the ground was cleared sufficiently to set up a small store. 2 dwellings were also erected. A few of these early buildings may still be seen in the remote corners of the community. They were constructed of the materials at hand, walls of rough-hewn logs, roofed with a sort of shingle split with an axe from hardwood blocks. There was, of course, no land to be cultivated when the first settlers arrived on the scene, and no crop lien system to provide in advance for provisions until something could be earned from the land. But the railroads needed cross ties for their constantly expanding lines. Timber agents came along in search of stave bolts and spoke material. This gave the settlers a chance to earn something while they were clearing the land. In this way, the colonists solved the problem of living off the wilderness while they were engaged in subduing it. At the end of 3 years, they had located and purchased 4,078 acres of land and had cleared and made ready for cultivation some 1,250 acres. Wow. They had earned during this time $8,780 from their timber operations and had raised 379 bales of cotton and 3,045 bushels of corn on the 655 acres of land which they had cleared.
All right, I'm gonna stop there.
Ow.
I mean, you guys are hearing it. You saw videos. You saw some of the structures that still stand. This is real. We're talking 137 years ago in Mississippi, in one of the most racist states in the country. Here these smart black men came out there, bought land collectively, working together, and committed to build this city. Understanding that we already done built cities. We just did it for somebody else. Now let's do it for ourselves. And it wasn't easy, as you guys are seeing. But we had the courage. We died during enslavement, clearing other people's land. All right. Who wants to pick up with the wilderness had become the frontier?
I got it. The wilderness had become the frontier. The colonists came in faster now. The ragged outline of the forest steadily receded in all directions, and large areas were opened for cultivation in the surrounding territory. Are we going into the growth of the colony?
Mhm.
It was not the ordinary Negro farmer who was attracted to Mound Bayou colony. It was rather an earnest and ambitious class, prepared to face the hardships of this sort of pioneer work. The scheme was widely advertised among the Negro farmers throughout the state and drew immigrants from all parts of Mississippi and a certain number from other states. Some of the most valuable settlers in the community came from the white capping counties in the southern part of the state. No doubt, the fact that the men who settled Mound Bayou are a select class has been an important factor in its success.
Okay, I want to stop there for a second. Once you had the first brave pioneers come in, after everybody came out there and said, I don't want no parts of this. You had the bravest of the brave step up, and they made it happen. And as they began to subdue the wilderness and clear all that land, what do you think started happening? Now people started becoming believers. But were they believers in the beginning? Were they believers when they saw that raw land? Were they believers when they knew there was a swamp? Were they believers when they knew they didn't have any real capital for this endeavor? There was no crop lien system in place where they can just go borrow seed and whatnot. They were literally on their own in the middle of nowhere. Could they pull their money together and rent John Deere power tools and equipment? That didn't exist. That's the other part that I want you guys to understand, that this stuff is being done by hand, by rough hand tools. So for our people to put this level of sweat equity in building our own town, we have to study this. And just like what we're doing right now with our land, we're at the stage of raw land development. You guys who are already members, you guys who've already contributed to the purchasing of our own land, you're those first pioneers. I want you to see yourselves in this story, because we're rewriting this story right now today. History is not there just to be a point of nostalgia. We're supposed to learn from history. And this is what I'm learning. I'm learning that we have the capabilities of being self-sustaining right here in America. And I'm seeing firsthand our people doing it. How many of you, if you had known that we've done this, how many young people would take up the idea of establishing their own town if they were educated that this is something that Black people did? That this is something that Black people came together and do, and this is what the result. How many other Black kids would say, you know what, that's what I want to do when I grow up? But if they don't know anything about this, how can this be a reference point for their life in any meaningful way? We got to teach our own. We got to take this information seriously. All right, Natasha, you want to pick back up after 20 years of existence?
After 20 years of existence, Mound Bayou colony numbers about 800 families, making a total population of some 4,000 persons. Of the 30,000 acres of land owned by members of the community, about 6,000 acres are already under civilization.
Cultivation.
Cultivation, I'm sorry, cultivation. This land produces annually about 3,000 bales of cotton and from one half to two-thirds of the corn and fodder consumed by the community. The original site of the town has been extended until, including the 30 acres in the original plot and the several additions that have been made since, it embraces a tract of 96 acres. With the influx of population, the value of land in the town and the surrounding country has greatly increased in value. Property inside the town that formerly cost from $7 to $9 an acre sells at present in the form of building lot at prices ranging from 1 to 3 cents per square foot. This land, which was assessed at one time at $2 an acre, has now an assessed valuation of $23,073.55.
All right, stop there for a second. This is something else I want to point out. All of those original people who believed in the idea and put their resources into the development of Mound Bayou, they all saw tremendous returns. They all became wealthy. The land that they bought for pennies on the dollar became worth substantially more. So in doing this pioneering work, these individuals not only created a self-sustaining refuge, Black community, Black town, they also enriched themselves in the process. You heard how many millionaires were in this small municipality. All right? So that's the other thing. In doing this pioneering work, we all become wealthy. And we're not becoming wealthy in a way where we're just trying to emulate somebody else's culture. We use our wealth in a different capacity, as you're going to see as we continue to read here. Somebody wants to start with the business of the town?
I will.
Okay.
The business of the town has grown with the growing population. There are 13 stores and a number of small shops in the town, which do an annual business of something like 600,000. The express business at Mound Bayou amounts to 250 per month. The railroad station is the 10th in importance between Memphis and Vicksburg, according to a writer in the Planter's Journal, and the railroad traffic amounts to 40,000 a year. There are 6 churches and 3 schools in the town. One of these, the Mound Bayou Normal and Industrial Institute, conducted by B.F. Oldsley, has a building which, with the 7 acres of land belonging to and adjoining the school, is valued at $3,500. This school was started by the American Missionary Association before the town was incorporated. The expenses of maintaining it, about $1,500 a year, are met in part by the society that founded it, but in part by a tuition fee of $1 a month from its pupils. A second school, established and maintained by what are known familiarly as the Sister Workers of the Colored Baptist Church of Bolivar County, has a large 2-story building for recitations, and plans are now being made for the building of a dormitory to provide accommodations for pupils who come in from the surrounding farms to get the advantages of better schools than the county can provide. The town is gradually increasing its facilities for doing business and is acquiring all the machinery of the highly organized community. Mound Bayou has a bank, 3 cotton gins, a telephone exchange, a weekly newspaper, and is preparing to issue bonds for the construction of waterworks and the erection of a system of electric lighting. It is an indication of the progress of the town that a well-kept cemetery, an institution too often neglected by Negroes, has been established on one side of the town, and a public park of 5 acres has been laid out on the other. Mound Bayou, though an exclusively Negro town, keeps up its connection with and interest in the outside world. The post office business amounts to between 400 and 500 a quarter. 50 Memphis papers are sold every day in the town, and there are a number of subscribers to the magazines of general information. The business interests of Mound Bayou Town and community centers in the Bank of Mound Bayou organized March 8, 1904, with a capital stock of $10,000. The earnings of the bank during the first 8 months of its existence amounted to 17%. And in 1906, it paid a dividend of 16% and set aside a considerable sum as a surplus. And the following statements indicates the condition of the bank on February the 12th of 1907, which is a year afterwards.
All right, we can skip that part, but it genuinely
Right.
shows that the bank was well capitalized and that they
Mm-hmm.
were actually doing well, that they were doing 16 and 17% ROI on its capital. And right now, well, traditionally, Wall Street gives you about 10% ROI on your
Mm.
capital. And it is the hedge funds that give you around, 17 to 20% on your capital. So here you are talking about over 120 years ago, formerly enslaved African people, not just starting their own community, but establishing municipalities, establishing bank, understanding banking language, banking knowledge. Where did this come from? Where did they go to school at? They didn't go to Harvard, Yale, and all of these places. This is knowledge that we had intrinsic. This is knowledge that we had gathered by way of running the affairs of white people for generations. All right, and you see the level of sophistication of these African people. They're not just doing something small, they're doing something at the highest level. All right, you want to continue it as practically?
As practically all of the business of the colony centers in the bank, it is natural that nearly all the prominent businessmen of the town should be represented on the board of directors. Charles Banks, the founder and cashier of the bank, he was a successful businessman at Clarkston before he even came in 1903 to Mound Bayou. He became interested at that time in the success of the enterprise, sold out his business interests in Clarksdale, and cast in his fortunes with the colony. He's the youngest and most aggressive businessman in the town. John Francis, the president of the bank, he came to the settlement in an early day from New Orleans and worked for a time as a clerk. The Bradstreet and Don mercantile agencies assessed the value of his property at $20,000 to $25,000. His neighbors said that he and his wife are worth $50,000. W.T. Montgomery, he's the postmaster, the brother of the founder and vice president of the bank, is a man of independent means. He owned and conducted for 12 years a farm of 640 acres near Fargo, North Dakota, which he sold at the time of the rise in Dakota lands at an advance of from $20 to $25 per acre over what he paid for it, and invested in other lands in the neighborhood of Winnipeg, Canada. Among the directors of the bank are R.M. McCarthy. He owns 450 acres of land in the colony, and he runs a cotton gin. T.C. Jordan has a bakery and meat market. He started in the colony as a farmer. He's now said to be worth something like eight to 9,000. J. Baker is the town marshal. C.R. Stringer is treasurer of the town. H.A. Goldberg, who came into the settlement as a farmer about 1895, runs a general store. The bank and its directors, because they represent and are so completely identified with the interests of the town, have come to have the position of a sort of chamber of commerce, guiding the credit of the various enterprises and directing and inspiring the economic and business development of the colony.
Okay, I want to stop there. One of the things here that I want to point out is that here you have Black capitalists who are establishing this community, and they are working, they are using the system to strengthen the economic position of all of the people in the community. They're using their skills and talents to uplift economically all Black people. They're not there to exploit the citizens of Mound Bayou. I want you guys to understand this, that here, these individuals see themselves as a de facto chamber of commerce. They see themselves as responsible for developing the economic system and the economic engine that is going to make this community prosperous. And they're not trying to own all of the land. As they came, they started off selling the land to other people, saying, we want you to have an ownership in this community, because they know if you have a direct ownership, you're going to be invested in the positive growth of this community. You're going to make sure that this community thrives, and you're going to be an active participant in doing so. So this is a whole enterprise that brings together Black people at every stage of development, and it incorporates Black people from every single industry. No matter what it was that you did, you could find a place within Mound Bayou and become successful. Who wants to read next? There are some difficulties, special difficulties.
I can.
Okay.
I don't mind reading some at some point.
All right. We'll get you next.
All right. There are some special difficulties in the financial direction and development of a town and colony like Mound Bayou. For instance, it has been the constant aim of the men who founded the colony to preserve it as distinctively Negro enterprise, separated from yet intimately bound up with commercial and political interests of other communities about it. The problem of preserving this isolation has often been a perplexing one. A difficulty arose a few years ago when the Louisville, New Orleans, and Texas Railway was sold to Yazoo and Mississippi. Practically all the lands purchased from the railroad company had been subject to a lien for deferred payments. With the change of ownership in the railroad, a wholesale foreclosure of these mortgages seemed imminent. Charles Banks and his associates in the bank managed, however, to have the loans renewed, and upon terms by which the mortgages were to bear 6% interest instead of 8%.
All right, stop there, because this is very, very, very critical. All right, as a real estate investor, or just as a regular person, I'm sure you guys probably have had a credit card with one bank and get a letter stating that your credit card company has been sold to another company and you got a new name, and you may have had a 5.5% interest rate with the old credit card, but the new owners are telling you that your new interest rate is going to be 15%. So that is what essentially happened in this situation. And I want you guys to understand that all these white people are not rooting for this Black community to be successful. While you do have a number of white people who are patrons of the products that Blacks are selling in Mound Bayou, you had a lot of people who wanted this to fail. And once they converted this swampland into valuable land, into a valuable settlement with a train depot and all of that, quite naturally, you had white people who wanted to take that land. And this was one of the ways that they tried to originally take the land or be able to confiscate the land from Black people who had bought land in Mound Bayou. All right. So understand here, once again, these men are saying, we're not going to allow your capitalists to come and exploit and take all of our people's land. We're going to work together and we're going to come up with a scheme. We'll negotiate so that we'll save the lands for everybody associated. Understanding that some of those farmers, they didn't have the sophistication to go and to renegotiate the terms of their mortgage, for lack of a better word. It wasn't really called a mortgage then, but that sort of thing. All right. Someone wants to finish?
Okay.
Time?
Yes, I'll finish. In time, all of the original purchase money for these lands was paid, but many of the colony, let's see here, let's see here at the
Any
top
of
of
the
the page.
colonies?
I'm on my phone here, so
That's okay.
I'm on my phone. Let's see where I'm at here. It's messing up on me here. Okay. Let's see. Go back to it. Okay. Oh, just one second here. I'm on my phone, so it's messing up here really bad.
Take your
Let's
time.
see. Okay. Where am I? Town of local government. That's where I am, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
No, no, no,
Mount
no.
Bayou has been.
No, Archie, wait. That whole
Wait a minute.
paragraph is not read. So go back up. Scroll back up.
Oh,
No,
I
scroll.
need to go back up. Okay, hold on.
Where it
No,
says
Archie,
in
scroll
time,
down. No, no, no. You're not there. Scroll down. Scroll back down. So you're at the bottom. In time, all the original purchase money for these lands were paid by many of the colonists and borrowed money for improvement. So scroll down. Scroll down. Scroll down.
so we're at the very top of this
At the
page.
very top, right? We're at the very top.
Okay, let's see.
So let's continue from where it says there was.
Okay, where it says borrowed money for improvement.
Yep.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. There was therefore a constant danger that farmers who were not able to discharge the mortgages when they came due would lose their holdings. To provide against this, the Mound Bayou Loan Investment Company was formed with a capital stock of $50,000. W.T. Montgomery was made president of this company and Charles Banks secretary and treasurer. The plan of this company was to sell stock to the farmers in the community. The price of the shares was fixed at $50, payable in monthly installments of $1. By this means, the capital was secured to take over the mortgages of those members of the community who were not able to pay the loans as they fell due. In the same time, provide a way by which the owners of the land might accumulate a sum sufficient to pay off the indebtedness for which the mortgage was issued. It is expected that the capital accumulated in this way will eventually be used to assist settlers coming into the colony to acquire and pay for the lands, and in this way extend holdings and influence of the colony. The town local government.
Okay.
Pardon me. Town local government. Mound Bayou has been from the first, at least in the minds of the men who founded it, more than a business enterprise. As a matter of fact, the most conspicuous success has been its local government. The records of the mayor's court show that as Delta towns go, Mound Bayou is a remarkable, quiet, and sober place. There have been but 2 suicides in 20 years.
Homicide.
Both of these, homicides. Both of these were committed by strangers, men who drifted into the community in the early days before the local self-government and traditions of the town has been established. One of the men killed was Benjamin T. Green, who was the partner of Isaiah T. Montgomery in the early days of the town. The man who committed this crime was afterwards identified as a fugitive from justice who was wanted for some desperate crime committed in the vicinity of Mobile. The murder was in the result of a trivial altercation in regard to a box of tax. Okay, during the whole 20 years in the town, oops, man, my phone just flipped it here. Okay, during the whole 20 years of the town's existence, only 3 persons have been sent to the circuit court for trial. 2 of these men were convicted of theft. Since the town obtained its charter in 1898, they have been up to February 1907, but 163 criminal cases tried in the town. Of these 50 were committed by strangers or men who had come into the town from the surrounding communities. 28 cases were either never tried or were so trivial of nature that no fine was imposed. 64 were cases of disturbing the peace.
All right, thank you. Stop right there for a second.
Okay.
Here you have a town that is virtually crime-free. The majority of their cases are trivial cases. 64 of the 163 were disturbing the peace. 2 murders in 20 years, 2 or 3 murders in 20 years. Sister Zenobia, you want to pick up here?
Okay. All right. I had to take myself off mute. It is interesting to read the records of the mayor's court. They are an index to the life of the village and reflect the changing current of public opinion in regard to the moral discipline and order of the town. In July 1902, the records show that 14 persons were arrested and fined for failure to pay the street tax. Every citizen of the town is required to do $3 worth of work on the streets every year. Some had neglected to pay this labor tax and allowed the streets to fall into a condition of neglect. As a result of a discussion of the matter in the town council, a number of the delinquents were arrested and compelled to pay fines amounting to $3.30 and costs amounting to $1.40 each. Again, in 1904, a man was arrested for gambling. He had established what is known in sporting parlance as a crap game, and on Saturday nights, a number of the young men of the village were accustomed to gather at his place to gamble. He was repeatedly warned, and finally the town marshal and some of the more substantial citizens made a raid upon the place and arrested 15 persons. The cases, okay.
Cases were dismissed. I'm sorry, I had to scroll.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. When you scrolled up, my
see
eyes.
the arrow? Can you see the arrow?
The cases were dismissed after each man had paid a fine of $2. A year later, another man was arrested for running a blind tiger selling liquor without a license. He formerly owned a store in the town but began selling liquor, then commenced to drink and was rapidly going to the dogs. After his place had been closed, he went out into the country and took up farming again. It is reported that he is doing well there. During the year 1905, there were several disturbances in the town which were traced directly to the illicit liquor sellers. Men would come into the town on Saturdays to do their marketing, fall to drinking, and end in a fight. Things began so bad at last that a public meeting was held in regard to the matter. As a result of this meeting, the town marshal, the mayor, and the treasurer were appointed to get evidence and secure the conviction of those who were guilty. 6 persons were convicted and fined at that time. One of these, a woman left town. Another is still, okay, is still under suspicious and rests now on their farms. So you got to stroll all the way up.
And the rest now that are on their farm.
Have become respectable citizens. Respectable citizen. To my mind, the interesting fact in regard to these prosecutions is that they serve not merely to correct a public abuse, but to reform the men who were prosecuted. In most cases, these men went back to the farms and became useful members of the community. It seems to be pretty well agreed that the moral conditions of Mound Bayou Colony are better than those of other Negro settlements in the Delta. Some years ago, when the question was an issue in the community, a committee was appointed from each of the churches to make a house-to-house canvass of the colony in order to determine to what extent loose families relations existed. The report of this committee showed that there were 40 families in the colony where men and women were living together without the formality of a marriage ceremony. As a result of this report, the people of the town gave notice that the 40 couples would have to marry within a certain length of town or they would be prosecuted. Nearly all of them acted upon this suggestion. The others moved away.
All right.
Since, yeah.
Stop.
Okay.
So once again, what you're seeing is Black self-determination in action. You're seeing Black people, respectable Black people, coming together and establishing a town, establishing a moral code of ethics for all of its citizens, ensuring that the most prosperous of the community is soundly taking care of the welfare of the entire community. You see that you have a moral standard being imposed upon people who are living in this community. They're saying that we're not going to allow liquor and gambling and all of these things to come and take root into our community and destroy our community. But they didn't go as dictators. They had a government set up. They met with leaders of the churches. They met with people in the community. And this was something that the community itself desired. So once again, the town of Mound Bayou is just an awesome, 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 awesome study in African liberation here in America. And as you're reading this, as you saw the videos and things like that, imagine living in an all-Black town that is functioning at this high a level, where you're in a town and you got a Black bank you go into. You know the Black banker, you know the mayor, he lives down the street. You go to the churches that are part of the people go to the churches are in the same community. You guys have your own schools. The school teachers live in your community. I can't imagine what the initial citizens who lived in this community, how they felt. But this is what we're doing now today. I'm going to stop here. For those of you who are interested in reading the rest of this article, it is a part of the Education for Life Academy, our Standing on the Shoulders of Giants Teach and Learn Black History curriculum. And this class is free of charge to anyone interested. To access the class, you go to educationforlifeacademy.com/Mound Bayou, all one word, and you will have free access. And as you see here, the article that we were just reading is part of the class assignment here, and that is how you'll access it. All right, we have some additional resources here, some oral history on Mound Bayou, so on and so forth. So that is educationforlifeacademy.com/Mound Bayou. And for all Black Achievement Fund members, you have complete access to the full curriculum for free as Black Achievement Fund members. And you can access that through our members only link. I want to stop here and I want to open it up to our community for comments. because, you know, we went over a lot and we said a lot, but I want to hear from you. This is where the Black Achievement Fund is. This is what we are seeking to do. Can we do this? Am I crazy? Can we do this? All right.
Absolutely.
I have a comment.
Awesome, awesome.
So
Keisha, you got the floor first. Hold on one second. Let me pull you up here. Oh, your camera's off. All
yeah,
right.
it's off, but yeah. So when we got to the area of the debt that the citizens had to pay, the $3, I was smiling to myself because I was saying to, this is BAF's 5 hours of community service right here, right? You do your portion to keep the community up going and at a level, where it's supposed to look a certain way, have a certain appeal. You're in a space of beautification, and it only takes a small amount of time. And then as the article go on, I'm laughing over here because today we had a meeting among leadership and we were discussing leadership and the two types. And the second part we were talking about was the Black section, where we have a certain amount of moral and ethics and code. And it's funny that we get to this part of the article. So I'm thinking this is how we're on the same wavelength as Black people, because we just discussed it from 11 to 1 in terms of Black moral, what it looks like to us, what are proper conduct, what are proper conduct and morals, rather. And then just to read this, to see that you have a certain amount of people that are on a certain vine, and then you get outsiders, even when they look like you, because they're not on the same character and moral compass. They bring these things in an effort to tear the community apart, even if that wasn't their intention. But then because of the moral compass of the people in the community, they're loved to try to, correct them. Some who doesn't want correction, leave. And some who want to do better, they stay. And we've spoken about this in the background of BAF in terms of whether or not we want prison system in our community, or how we go about correcting behaviors that does not fall in line with our character and conduct. And if we don't have a reformative sort of program, they have to exit. Like the people here who didn't want to, shape up, they had to exit. So it was just funny that it was in line with, points that we mentioned in our meeting this morning, and I yield.
Yeah, that's why I love that article so much, because it gives a glimpse at what's possible, and it shows you that Black people, we have a very, very high moral compass. And we have the ability, we have right now through the Black Achievement Fund, we got 10 guiding principles. In our community, everybody has to uphold those 10 guiding principles. In ancient Kemet, you had the 42 laws of Mayat, the moral code that all people of Kemet had to abide by in order to be reincarnated. So we have to have some type of moral code and understand that how everybody else operate, don't operate here. And that's why we here at the Black Achievement Fund are always aiming for the highest level of Black excellence. And we don't go down, okay? We bring people up. All right, we don't go down. So thank you for bringing that point out. It was very important. We got Brother Nasor, you have the floor.
Hey man, yeah, when we got to the part about reading of the bootleggers, now, the last time I was in Mound Bayou was probably, I've been to Mound Bayou a couple of times.
Okay.
The last time I've been there, and it was like 2010, 29 or 10, but they were still definitely a dry town. It was a dry, they had no alcohol there, no liquor. You know how I like my beer, so I had to go to the next town. But it's a dry town. It's a dry town, yeah. Still to this day.
Interesting. And you have a lot of communities in America that are dry towns. And when you see those, this is the citizens of that community deciding that this is what we want. If you want to go get liquor and stuff, you can go right down the street and get it. But here, we're sending a message to everybody that comes in this community that the people of this community are of this type. So if you're not of this type, please don't come try to buy a house out here, because you're not going to like it. All right. And the people here are not going to let you come out here and do anything that you want. So, I'm glad that you guys saw that part and understand that that's a critical component of any type of community. If you don't have that moral authority that you can impose, what is the community? You look at San Francisco right now, you got to have Saks Fifth Avenue just made an announcement that you have to have an appointment to go in the store. You can't even window shop anymore because yeah, yeah. Because the community has gone down so badly. So if you don't have those things then to protect your community, if you don't have a code of ethics that you post, that you demand that people who come here, you're gonna have to subscribe to, or you're gonna have to go, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. So yeah, the
Yeah.
Black Achievement Fund, we got our moral code and ethics etched in our bylaws.
I got another point. Um, a lot of their morals and ethics came from the religion, and a lot of them were not Jehovah Witness. Was it Jehovah? Yeah, it was Jehovah Witness. And at that point, Jehovah Witness weren't getting involved with the voting and they had a lot of moral standards. But I think one of the caveats which Isaiah made with the government was that they weren't going to get involved with a lot of the voting aspects of it. And I think that was because of the Jehovah Witness religions that was taking hold there.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right in the regards to how religion controlled their moral ethics. And I'm glad that you brought up Isaiah and voting rights. So for those of you, a little bit more history on Isaiah T. Montgomery, he was the only Black person nominated to attend the Mississippi 1890 Constitutional Convention, in which Mississippi wealthy people, okay, just came up on their own, came up with this on their own, wrote the Constitution on their own, got together and signed it into law. That's the same Constitution that Mississippi operates from right now today in 2024. And that was a Constitution that was put together simply by the elite of Mississippi. They announced the convention, ratified it right then and there. Isaiah T. Montgomery was the only African American in the state that was nominated to attend. And he was nominated to attend and essentially pressured into stating on the record that African Americans did not desire the right to vote. That was the whole reason why he was asked to come and nominated to be a part of that historic convention, okay? And let me see here. I have part 2 of the Mound Bayou story, which talks all about this historic decision because it provides richer context to what I'm talking about in terms of where we are right now today, okay? So he voted no for the right of Africans to vote in the 1890 Mississippi State Convention. He was deemed a traitor by Black people in the community. He was ostracized heavily. His position in the community was just crap, okay? And I think that he's been misunderstood. Number one, matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up really quickly. He was the only Black person, again, invited to come to this convention. Let me see if I can share my screen here and show you the picture of all of the Black people, all of the people at this convention. Because I want to give you guys the context, because so many of us, without proper context, it becomes really, really difficult to judge people's actions. I don't see it here. Let me see. But this is an important photo to see. This is real history. Mississippi. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a picture of the members of the legislature, the state of Mississippi.
Yes.
Okay, oh, wait a minute, this is 1874. Wait a minute. That's Reconstruction. I'm trying to show you guys the image of the Constitutional Convention. Can you guys see? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
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 All right. This is the photo of the people who came together to ratify Mississippi's 1890 Constitutional Convention. All right. And Isaiah T, you see all of these white men. You see them, right? Can you guys see that picture?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
All right. Now, these are all white Southern segregationists. These are all elite white people who were in charge of slave politics throughout the state. How many black people do y'all see in this photo?
I think I see about 4.
See one dude in the back, right?
They're all on the backside and on the ends.
Mm-hmm. This is Isaiah T. Montgomery right here. Can you see my arrow?
Yes,
Right.
I can see
Yes.
that gentleman.
Okay, that is him. These other black men that you see work for other prominent people.
Right.
All right, he is the only invited delegate. Okay, only invited delegate. Now, if he would have stood up in that constitutional hall and said that, are you out of your mind? Yeah, black people want the right to vote. What are y'all talking about? I vote yes.
Yeah, no.
Do you think he would have made it out of that convention hall?
No.
Not at all.
Well, they knew he was going to go along with him. That's why they invited him.
This is 1890, people. This is during the nadir, the lowest point in African American history here in the Americas. This is when lynching is in full scale. Do you think this man would have left that convention had he said yes?
Nope.
No, he wasn't allowed.
If he would have said yes, does that mean that it would have been ratified that black people get the right to vote? Who would have voted with him?
Yeah, okay.
Who would have voted with him? So what he did was the lesser of two evils. He struck a deal. All right, I'll go and be a part of your political charades, and on paper say that black people don't care about voting.
Right.
In exchange for you allowing us to be self-governing without any interference. That is the deal that he struck with white power structure. This is 1890, okay? Now, I want you guys to see, so this is 1890, Montgomery. Okay, here we go again. This is the better one. Can y'all see?
Yeah.
You see the picture?
Yes.
Yes.
These are all the official delegates to the Constitution. You see? Where do you see Isaiah Montgomery?
Right at the bottom. Right at the bottom.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Okay.
And he's
Look
the
at all
only
these
one.
white men here. This is the former slave-owning gentry of Mississippi.
Right.
You're in the heart of the freaking Ku Klux Klan leadership. You gonna stand up and say what?
Okay.
And I mean, and I dare to say that even though, echoes back. I dare to say that even though he voted no because of the environment that he was in, he probably didn't want it anyway. So probably, the environment was a part of it, but probably knew that we didn't want it anyway.
Exactly. We got our own thing going here. Our model is to establish our own municipalities, our own towns. What do we need with white voting rights? We have our own government here. We do business with white people, but they don't come bothering us. Ain't no white people in our town. Ain't no white police officers here. The Klan ain't lynched nobody in Mound Bayou. So was that such a bad thing? So notice dates. Notice dates. Dates are important. That was the 1890 Mississippi Constitutional Convention. And mind you, this convention was essentially, just like me, the president of the Black Achievement Fund, say I'm gonna have a State of the Black America conference. And we're going to decide on the strategy for all Black Americans. And then I hand select the delegates to this convention. And then we get together and we sign off and decide on the strategy on behalf of all Black people in the country. Is that legal? Is that document legal? Who said that you get these people can operate on the behalf of all of us? Who gave them the authority? This is how the 1890 Mississippi Constitutional Convention came into being. And this constitution is still the legal constitution of Mississippi right now today. Just want to point that out, all right? But I also want to point out, when we talk about history, you can't just jump to an emotional response to how you feel about something. You have to be able to put yourself in the historical context of the time. You have to be able to put yourself in that person's position. And you have to also be able to use logic. Based on what you just read about this man, does this seem like someone who just wants to throw away Black rights? Does this seem like someone who's just going to, be a part of exploiting Black people or hurting Black people? Is that what you came to know him for? When I was coming up in school, all of the praise was given to W.B. Du Bois by all of the Black scholars and all of the African American Studies program, Du Bois, Du Bois, Du Bois, Du Bois. They actually called Booker T. Washington a sellout. In 1895, at his at the Atlanta Exposition, right here in Atlanta, in Piedmont Park, there's actually a plaque in Piedmont Park. If you guys are in the Atlanta metropolitan area and you're walking through Piedmont Park, you'll see that plaque if you really look. And it marks the 95 Atlanta Exposition. And it is at this Atlanta Exposition that Booker T. Washington emerges as the head Negro in charge in terms of Black leadership. And he got a standing ovation from the white folks in the South in 1895, this exposition. And what was it that he said that got him this standing ovation? Remember when he said, in all things social, we can be as separate as the fingers on the hand. But in all things related to economic progress, we can be one like the fist. In all things social, we can be as separate as the fingers on the hand. But in all things towards economic progress, we can be one like the fist. White folks stood up. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Somebody get him a drink. Somebody get him a house. Wait. He just said it. Black people and white people socially not together. That was 1895. Plessy versus Ferguson, which established the whole doctrine of separate but equal, was the following year in 1896. So I want you to see how these white Southerners, these white races at the highest level, slavery's over, Civil War is over 1865. From the moment it was over, they didn't just give up. They continued to work together to reorchestrate a system of second-class citizenship akin to slavery. And separating the races was a critical part of that. And they used Black people to help establish that as legal doctrine in America. And that's how you got Plessy versus Ferguson passed. And that's how Booker T. Washington became, such the huge star in white circles. He had the white racists giving him money. He had the Northerners giving him, he had everybody giving him money. And that's why he was called the Wizard. People couldn't understand how he got the Ku Klux Klan getting him money. And letting them operate under their own authority. He was the king of Tuskegee. Whatever he said, that's what happened. He didn't have no people telling him what to do, running him. He listened to Isaiah T. Montgomery, and he carried that same strategy and that same philosophy. He took it to the next level. Every single building, original building at Tuskegee, those students built that stuff. All of the furniture, the mattresses, all of this stuff. Let me show you. All of this stuff, okay? But again, if we don't know history, if we can't connect the dots, we can't analyze our situation at a degree in which we can come up with real solutions. Our kids don't know these people. Hold on. I want to show you guys a picture. You see this image? You see the education department on the screen?
Yes.
If you can, for those of you who can't read it, let me see. This image, the caption, Tuskegee in the making. Nothing delighted Mr. Washington more than to see his students doing the actual work of erecting the Tuskegee Institute buildings, a group of students raising the roof on one of the buildings. Do you guys see that? These are students.
They are immaculate today. I went there about 6 months ago. I was shocked.
This is Black excellence. You going to school, you're not just learning the theory, architectural theory, you're learning practice.
Beautiful, yeah.
You're learning practice. So this is what the Black elite was huddling together in the South to do. They were negotiating with the white Southern races to establish our own municipalities where we were self-governing. That was the deal. We're gonna let y'all be self-governing, just please leave us alone. Leave us alone. And we'll leave y'all alone. And those Black leaders say, you got a deal. You got a deal, brother. We know what we're doing. We've made your cities the most prosperous of the prosperous. We did all of that. We don't need you. We don't need to be a part of your community. We can do this better than you. That is what the Black leadership was telling Black people in the South. They won't telling them people, no, we need to integrate with them. No, we can't be anything unless they give us something. And people ain't want no parts of them. And was able to prosper. That was the deal. We've gone backwards. We've gone completely backwards. I can't put no roof together and I'm Ivy League educated. I can't build nothing. We have to go back to the basics. We have to go back to what made sense, to pure logic. I feel like since the civil rights movement, we've been trying to push a square through a circle. That was supposed to be the means to a greater end. It was only supposed to end the indignity of forcing us into substandard public facilities. That was about. You're not going to demean us in this country, and we're citizens. You're not going to force us to have to use inferior accommodations. That was about. You're not going to deny us the right to have the most elite education that's offered in this country. That's what that was about. Denied opportunity. Not about us submitting our culture. And that's what has happened. And here we at the Black Achievement Fund saying, no. We're going back to the bases. We're going back to land ownership. We're going back to square one. We're going back to self-governing. So it don't matter what's going on in the larger community. That's Black power. That's independence. That's liberation. Being able to have my son walk through the community without having to fear that he may get stopped by a white cop. I know the cop. We hired him. He come to the picnics. He live in the community. That is the difference with the Black Achievement Fund and other organizations, and we already have results. We already have results. So if you're on the fence about joining us, if you don't understand what it is that we're trying to do, I hope this made it crystal clear. I hope we have shown the direction that we as a people need to go, and that this is the direction that the Black Achievement Fund is moving in. All right. We're past 4 o'clock today, y'all. This has been an extended info session. I really enjoy teaching this. This is what I believe wholeheartedly in. This is what I'm working exhaustively towards. This is where all your hard-earned money is going towards. So continue to support our efforts. If you haven't joined, please join. The money that's coming in is being recycled back into our communities, going in the hands of other Black people, helping other Black business people, Black freelancers, so on and so forth. And it's also helping us to develop our very own community. We have over 100 acres of land, 30 minutes from Milledgeville, 30 minutes from Macon. We have a world-renowned architect and development firm who's doing our master planning. We are creating something fantastic. And we just got our building permit to build our very first house. So I'm super excited about that. For our members, I'll talk more about that at the next membership meeting. So for our members, come to our monthly membership meeting, okay? We go over all of the development updates, what's happening in Little Kemet, how much everything costs, all the pre-construction things that you have to go through in order to get to the point of actually building the house and building the community. So we want all of you guys to know this information, share this information, because this is our movement, okay? The Black Achievement Fund doesn't have a monopoly on establishing Black towns, okay? We want other groups across the country to look at what we're doing and to mimic what we're doing. We want you to join us and still mimic what we're doing, and we all utilize the resources to make it happen for all of us. All right, Do we have any other questions? Any other comments before we sign off for today?
Excellent job, brother. Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you know what? We have one of the new members online here, and I'm glad to see that she's on there, Sister Harriet Harris. Good to see you.
Harriet.
Yeah.
How you doing, Sister Harriet? She actually came the other day and visited Kemet Club.
Right. Well, see, that's why I'm bringing this up, because she is the young lady that's getting ready to do, that we're getting ready to do the yard sale with on August the 10th. So for those of us who's on here that's from the Atlanta area, we'd like for you to participate. We're going to be sending, you probably already seen the flyer that came out. There was a flyer that came out already.
Yep. And we're going to continue to promote it. But Sister Harriet came right in as a new member and called me up and was interested in having a yard sale. And we said, oh, wait, let's do a community yard sale. That would be great. And you know me, I'm like, all right, you got a good idea. Be ready to spearhead it. All right?
Yeah.
She didn't run. She didn't run. She didn't say, you know what, let me call you back. My mama calling me. She said, no problem.
Yeah, we had a good conversation yesterday, and I really enjoyed meeting her and talking with her. And I'm sure she's going to be an instrumental person in our organization.
Well, I'm so glad to be able to finally see you in person, Sister Harriet. Having talking to you on the phone, and thank you again for the quick leadership. We really need that. So for all of you in the Atlanta metropolitan area, we're going to be having once again a community yard sale here at the Kemet Club on the 10th. You'll see more advertisement about it going forward. But if you have anything that you would like to sell, this is free of charge. All right, you can come sell your personal home stuff, keep the money, all right, that sort of thing. We're just doing this as a service to our members and a service to our community. If you want to donate something to the Black Achievement Fund, of course, we would love that, but it's not a requirement. But again, we want to just do something for our community, and but you can't leave stuff here, all right? Please do not take this as I can go and drop off all the stuff I had in my attic for the past 5 years at the Black Achievement Fund and let them figure it out. No, 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 no. All right. You have to come with your merchandise, sell your own merchandise, and whatever is not sold, you have to take with you. All right. You can't leave it here at the Kemet Club. Okay. But do come out, bring the things to sell. And we're going to advertise it and promote it. We'll have some hors d'oeuvres, we'll have music going and that sort of thing. All right. So thank you again, Sister Harriet.
Glad to be here. Really glad to be here.
All right.
Also, we are having another community camp out on our land Labor Day weekend, Friday, August 30th to Sunday, September 1st. So for all of you who couldn't make our Juneteenth, and still want an opportunity to come and hang out on the land and experience all that good stuff, here's another opportunity for you to do so. We're going to be having, all sorts of fun out there. We'll have the porta potties out there, the big tent out there. We have some fire pits going. We got 2 grills, 2 propane frying baskets and that sort of thing. We have 1 for vegan, 1 for meat eaters out there. So we pretty much have everything that you need. We have the tiki torches out there. We've already been out there and slept out there. You're not going to get eaten up by bugs and all of those types of things. So if you haven't come out, or if you already come out again, hang out with us, and learn more about the development process, learn more about the steps that we're in right now, and you'll actually get a chance to see and breathe and that sort of thing. So we want to extend that invitation to all of our members as well as guests, all right? And you'll see more and more advertising for that. And free vending, all right? If anybody wants to come out there and vend for our community camp out for Labor Day, you can do so free of charge, and that is for food and non-food vendors, okay? There is a $20 fee for the camp out in general, but it's free vending.
Can I add one more thing? Even before August 10th, we're planning on having at the Kemet Club a meet and greet on Saturday, the 27th.
Oh, awesome.
We were planning on having that come together.
Awesome.
That would be next Saturday.
Okay, great. And so for all of you, make sure you guys are checking your emails. Make sure you're also checking your texts. We've started texting people who have agreed to accept text from us. So make sure you're clicking on to our emails and whatnot and get the information. All right. Once again, I want to thank everybody for your participation. I want to thank everybody for your consistent support. We love you guys. We're working very, very hard to manifest this into reality. We are in a very, very good place. I'm just really, really happy. You know, this is happening, you know, and we're making it happen. We're those same pioneers, you know, that like those from Mound Bayou. So to be able to see the parallels of history to what we're doing now, it just makes me smile and know that we're doing our ancestors justice. They are looking at us and they're like, finally, yes, finally, I told you they were.
Oh, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Can I say one? And I put in the comment section. Can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this speaking?
Sister Harriet.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Reading Mamie Till's book about her, the death of Emmett. She actually stayed in Mound Bayou when she came to Mississippi for the trial of Emmett's killers.
Wow.
She was kept safe in Mound Bayou during that time. Yeah.
That's a very important fact. I'm so glad that you brought that out, you know, and they mentioned that in one of the videos, but that's an important fact. You know, that was a safe haven for people. You know,
It was.
Right. She came into the city on the train that landed, that pulled into the station there. Mm-hmm. And one of the doctors in the community had a place for her to stay, her and her father to stay in his house while the trial was going on.
Oh, that is an awesome piece of history to add. I'm gonna make sure that I add that to the overview of the class. Thank you so much for that information.
Okay.
See, this is why we got to come together as a community. You see, I came in as a teacher and look what I just learned. You know what I mean? So, this is why I love what we're doing. And for all of our members, all of the knowledge that you have, we have our BAF Village, which is member driven. And this is a platform for our members to come and share their wisdom on virtually anything that you love doing. If you love cooking and you want to show us some recipes, hey, come on our village. If you know how to write resumes and you want to teach us how to write a winning resume, hey, do a course on our BAF Village. But we need not just your money, but we also want your wisdom. It's not always about a dollar. It's also about contributing in other ways. So, just putting that out there. BAF Village. Okay. Thank you, Sister Harriet. You've been a wealth of information and leadership, and you've just been a member less than a month. I love it. I hope other members follow your example.
I've been looking for this kind of group for a long time, so I just feel right at home.
Good. We're glad to have you.
I really
All right, everybody. Love you guys. Black Achiever for a hug.
Love you, family. Love you.
Love you.
Love you, Black.
Share the class. All right. If you want to continue to read the article, educationforlifeacademy.com/Mound Bayou. Okay. It's a free course. Now you should be able to teach it.
Got it.
All right, guys.
Power to the people.
All right, Black Power.